Okay, so Game of Thrones season 4 finale, The Children. It's taking me so long to put this video for two reasons. One, indifference. I'll admit. When I liked the episode, it just like after a while, it's like we don't do it the first day. Like everything that has to be said is already said. But at the same time, like I was hearing other people say different things, and I agree and disagree with some stuff. So that made me, want to do my own personally. And I guess, I didn't dislike the finale, but at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that leaves me kind of hot and cold about the whole thing. But that has to do not just simply with the episode, but choices that they've made about characters that are sort of long-standing. So just to go through things that happened in the episode really quickly that I enjoyed. Stannis coming in the beginning with Mance and listening to his counsel, listening to Jon. I love that because I think the reason why I like Stannis, and the reason why Stannis is my choice, my male choice for ruler of Westeros, whatever, is because he cares about the people and he cares about his country in enough to look the bigger picture, which is what no other ruler is doing. Another ruler is trying to take care of the situation on the wall, which we as readers know is the most important issue going on right now, because the War of the Kings, even Dany's storyline, none of this is really important in the long term, because if the White Walkers come and they come and attack Westeros, that's going to be the biggest thing. And we need the Night's Watch to be there and to be strong, and we need people supporting that. And so it doesn't really matter that, Daenerys has dragons if her dragons aren't in Westeros when they need them. And so I like that Stannis, even though he could be out there going attacking King's Landing and doing all kinds of stuff, but he's not. He's going to deal with the problem that's happening that no other king is paying attention to. And he listens to his counsel. He listens to Davos. He listens to Jon's advice because he trusts Jon, because Ned was a good leader. And I think that what's interesting is that as much as people will mock the Starks for being naive in situations, I think that we have seen in this season that the name Stark carries respect, and that people respect the Stark name. So it doesn't matter if the Starks are dead, because people are still supporting Catelyn. People are still supporting Ned. People, if they hear you're Arya Stark or your Sansa Stark, they care about you because they cared about the parents. And, just being Ned Stark's bastard made Jon worthy in Stannis' eyes, because you come from Ned Stark, you come from Stark genes. And I think that it shows that while there is that naivety with the Starks, it was a good-heartedness that inspires people to follow them. And at the end of the day, if you don't have supporters and real backers, you're fucked, which is why the Lancers are going what they're doing too. Just to wrap up all of Jon's stuff, he meets with Mance, they talk. Mance doesn't really try to fight him or anything. It just because also in Stannis' men come, they decide to burn all the men that are killed. Jon takes Ygritte out and burns her. Before he does that, Tormund tells him that Ygritte loved him because she kept talking about trying to kill him all the time, which, true love, absolutely. Overall, I liked Ygritte in the show. I think that they improved her character a lot by getting to see more of her perspective. I think the actress did a really good job at performing her character. I didn't like her getting shot in the neck by a 9-year-old, but that is life. So I really enjoyed her character and what she brought to it. I think that Jon, from this point on, gets more interesting, at least for me, so that'll be interesting to see. I think that in these last few episodes we get to see Jon in a really strong leadership position, even though some of the decisions he makes are kind of silly, like going into enemy camp unarmed. That he cares about these people and he's willing to lay his life down, just like Stannis is. And I think that now that Melisandre's there, and Stannis is there, and you have these opposing people kind of dealing with each other on top of the wilding situation, it'll be fun and interesting to see what the writers choose to do with that. The next thing that we see is Qyburn is talking with Cersei and Pycelle about the mountain being poisoned. Pycelle doesn't know how to save him, but Qyburn does, and it's by nefarious means, but Cersei's okay with that because she loves nefarious stuff. And then Cersei basically tells Tywin that he's stupid. She's not going to let her son be treated like dung. She's not going to marry Loras Tyrell, and if he tries to marry her to Loras Tyrell, she's going to tell everyone that she and Jaime have been fucking and that dumb children is theirs, which Tywin's like, this isn't true, you're lying to me, because he don't know, because he ignorant. And then she goes to Jaime, tells him that she loves him, doesn't care about her father or their brother, and they have sex. And okay, So I don't, the scene is very well acted. I think that if we're going by TV standards, this was a good scene, because TV Cersei would do these type of things. It's so against my idea of Cersei, because she's very much adamant about not doing this. I mean, like, her and Jaime's personalities are totally reversed in this situation, because Jaime's usually the one who's like, I want us to get, like, in the relationship that they have, she's much more the emotional one who wants them to be out in the open and together, and she's the one who's like, no, I gotta protect my children and their lineage and all that kind of stuff. So it's an inversion, probably done to play up to those kind of romantic tropes, because she's gotta be the emotional woman, Jaime's gotta be a strong guy. But yeah, it was a well-acted scene. I believe Tywin would be ignorant of it, because he doesn't really pay attention to the people around him, because if he did pay attention to the really deeper meanings of his family, then he would know how to use his children to the best advantage of the family, instead of just, you know, pushing them into what he assumes they should be like how the Tyrells do, because the Tyrells know how to use their children. And even though they took away some of the members of the family, what people have said and meta and different things is that what makes the Tyrells such a great foil to the Lannisters is that the Tyrells also have a young, beautiful daughter, a talented warrior son, and a disabled son, and they use all of these children to the best means of the family, and don't ignore them because one of them is homosexual, one of them is disabled. They don't push them aside. They still see the value in them and play to what their strengths are, so trying to force them into a sort of, you know, a box based on how society should prepackage them, which is why the Tyrells are winning. The Jaime Cersei scene's a mess. I mean, like, for me personally, Jaime was one of my favorite characters in the books. He went from being a character I hated to, in book 3, becoming a character that I absolutely, completely fell in love with. He was still a problematic character. He was still never this great, noble, perfect guy that some people will kind of think he is. He's not redeemed. He's explained. And that's a big difference. You understand why Jaime thinks and does the thing that he does, and that makes you like him. Because he's no longer just a cardboard cutout pretty boy villain who sleeps with his sister. You get that he's this kind of like, that he has seen things, and he has done good things. He's made hard choices to benefit lots of people, but cannot reap the benefits of that because of society's laws that say that because you do this, you are bad. And he exposes, much like Sandor Clegane in his backstory does, the hypocrisy of knighthood and honor, and what that honor means in real life, and not just in the fairy tale. And I think that's what makes Jaime such an interesting character. And I think that as we see more of his background in the books, you realize that he has seen things and he is shaped by them, and he's much more empathetic to other people than we initially might have perceived. And so that's why Rape Jaime hurts so much, because I feel like with Jaime Rape of Cersei, and on top of that, the actors' attempts at excusing the Cersei Jaime rape have made me just not enjoy the character. And I think that's something that's going to taint the show and Jaime's storyline for me the entire time, because the scene where he and Brienne, you know, go apart, didn't care. Him with the whole thing with Tyrion, didn't care. I no longer care about Jaime in the context of the show as being a character that I love, because in terms of character listing, he was my third favorite character of the entire series. Third, second, he went between the two. He was also the gravitating between my second and third favorite character. Now I don't care about him in the show. In the books, he's still number 2, 3, but in the show, I have no emotional connection to him anymore. They've ruined it for me. And I blame the show because they just don't get that character, and it bothers me. So yeah, I can't fuck with Jaime on that level, which makes me sad because I loved his character. I'm gonna save Tyrion stuff for last because I feel like it fits better there. Dany's scene with her dragons was so emotional for me, because like it's Drogon who does it, and I forget, I think one of the other dragons are Viserion and Rhaegon or something like that, because I know they're named after her brothers, both of her brothers, and Drogon's named after Drogo. So Drogon is missing. He's the one who killed the little girl, and then the other two get locked up in his like catacombs, and there's like a little hole so they can get their food. But the sound that the dragons make when she's leaving and her face, like, that's the best acting she's done all season. Like, I love Emilia Clarke. I think that she brings a lot of swagger to Dany. I do, and I use that term because I think it's true. She brings a lot of, embodies the physicality of Daenerys. Sometimes emotionally it can be hit or miss, but I think in terms of just physical embodiment, she's great as Dany. And she was great in this scene. I thought that the sounds that the dragons made was so emotional, and just like they were like, "Mommy," and I just like I teared up a little bit because I was really getting a little emotional because of it. But yeah, that was a great scene, I thought. Then Bran's storyline happens. He, Mira, and Jojen go and they get attacked by these skeletal beings, and then one of the children of the forest come and protect them, and it takes them to fucking Bloodraven. And he tells Bran that he'll never walk again, but he'll fly. And this is interesting because Jojen dies, which was kind of controversial because of stuff that happens. Jojen Paste, you can look it up to see about it. This scene was interesting because I feel like they're finally getting to the more interesting parts of Bran's story, because Bran's storyline is that it's boring, but it's so mythologically rich that sometimes it just gets kind of like breezed aside because you don't see the immediate importance of it within the plot. It's like, how does Warging and Bran's story tie into what's going on in Westeros? And the thing about it too is that at the end of the day, as far as it is, you know, King's Landing doesn't just matter, you know, it's everything else that's combined. But we feel that way because all the big players, all our favorite characters are in King's Landing or around it, so that's what we're concentrating on. But really, Bran's storyline is important because it ties more into the mythology of what's going on in the North and how all this stuff will help defeat the White Walkers. So really, it's important. It's just, you know, it doesn't seem that way because Peter Dinklage is in it. We know how, you know, TV fans love Peter Dinklage. So Mira fights them. Hodor, you know, they use Bran works into him to defend himself. Jojen dies. They go see Bloodraven. Bloodraven said that he knew he was gonna die. Deal with it. And then we get the Sandor, Brienne, Arya stuff. And this is fan fiction. It's fan fiction. I'm sure for a lot of people, they were super excited to have Arya and Brienne, because people like, Brienne and Arya are so much alike, and they're not. I mean, in the show, I guess more so, but in the books, not really. So it's definitely fan fiction with Brienne kind of being grown up Arya in a better world, because Brienne's a little bit more idealistic since, you know, she's named her sword. And then Sandor comes and she talks about how, and he mentions how, you know, Jaime Lannister on the quest. So then Arya's like, no, I'm not chilling with you because you just said Lannister and I don't fuck with them. And so Sandor says that, like, Brienne isn't the right person to protect Arya. And so they begin this whole kind of really intense, really bloody fight. And it's very violent, it's very intense. I will give it that. But emotionally, I had no connection to it because they're just kind of like, this is fan fiction. It's like, and at the same time, I think the other reason why at the end when Sandor falls, like, the brutality of it was great. Like, I think that, like, seeing how, and I think what's great about the scene is that Sandor was not sexist in his fighting. He fought Brienne like he would fight any champion, and he did not pull any punches, and neither did either of them. And that made it so good. It's like two equally talented people beating each other's asses up. And as someone who used to watch wrestling, it entertained me greatly, I can tell you that much. But then when Sandor was fallen and, you know, the whole scene with him and Arya happening, I mean, Sandor is one of my favorite characters in the books. Like I said, for the same reason that Jaime is. His backstory and his relationship with Sansa, platonically. I'm not even getting into, like, the Sansa thing, even though I have my thoughts on Sansa, so that's not a big deal. But it's so interesting of how they help, of how we see Sandor's backstory and how it connects to the ideas of knighthood, how he's one of the first people who, you know, deconstructs Sansa's viewpoints of knighthood. It's both of how he tries to protect her and both what he tells her about his own backstory. And a lot of that was erased in the show and then put on to Arya, because in the books, Sandor and Arya are not this close. They never had that whole speech where he talks about his childhood and what happens. That he told to Sansa, but Littlefinger took that in season 1 because they don't give a shit about Sansa's character development, as we have seen. And and therefore their relationship is built up to be something much deeper in the books than it much deeper in the show than it is in the books. And so when she ditches him, people are kind of like, what happened? I thought they were cool, I thought they were gonna do this. But it's not, that's not how the relationship ever was. They were never that close. And Sandor doesn't die from this in the books. In the books, well, there's a lot of issues I won't get into, but basically he doesn't get injured, dead from this. The bite that he gets infected, and that's what leads to his to him getting sick, having to die. And that was changed. I can see why, because you know, why have a simple way of killing someone when you can have, you know, sword fights and losing an ear and, you know, broken leg. So then Arya dips and leaves, and I think what was the thing about, like, when Sandor talks about how he, like, should have, like, done all these kind of things or whatever, it meant nothing to me because Sandor has been so poorly developed. He literally just says, he just walks around as his fucking cunt. That's it. That's his character. And, like, there's so much more to him than that was not shown. Even his fear of fire had to be done in this really hyper masculine way, which is Sandor is not. Sandor happens to be very emotional. I mean, he emotionally unloads on 13-year-old girls, so he's not the most emotionally, you know, stable person, and yet they had to turn him into, like, kind of, you know, really tough alpha male. And physically, though, I think Rory is great at playing Sandor, and I think that he gets this side of it. I think he can do the emotional side just as well too, because when he does become emotional, it shows really well, but they don't really write that in a lot. They just make him kind of like, you know, tough guy type thing, and that's just kind of upsetting because that's not what he was. Not entirely. It was only one part of him. So that's that. And then, you know, the finale is Arya going to Braavos. A controversial ending because some people were looking for other characters to come in the ending. I won't talk about that because it's not an issue right now, but for me, I wasn't disappointed in the character not showing up, because I never felt like they were going to go that way anyway, because D&D are trolls. The final thing to talk about, the most important thing, and my biggest issue with the show, and the series, to be quite frank, is the whitewashing of Tyrion Lannister. So basically, how it happens in the show. Jaime breaks out Tyrion. Tyrion decides to go up to the Chamber of the Hand, sees Shae. Shae wakes up, grabs a knife. Tyrion strangles her in self-defense, feels bad about it, grabs a crossbow, goes to see his dad in the toilet. Dad tries to be like, I was never gonna let you die in the first place, you my boy, what? And then Tyrion's like, you know, I loved her, you always want me, Dad. And he's like, you mad cause ho died? And then he's like, don't call her ho no more, shoots him. And he's like, you shot your father for a whore, shoots him again. He dies in the toilet. Tyrion leaves. My homeboy Varys puts him in a box, hears the bells ringing because Tywin's bad. He's like, well, fuck, and he goes to wherever Tyrion's going with him. That's the lowdown. So what was supposed to happen? And people will be like, this is the thing, people think that, like, as a book reader, that we're all just kind of like, you just want to be exactly like it is in the books. Look, I get it. Okay, I get it. You know, you're watching the show, you like the show characters, you like the show development, you don't understand why people have to bitch about things that are not there. Maybe they're making a better show by doing it. My thing is that, for me, why I don't like these changes is that it makes certain the show and fans of the show who talk about the violence and everything bad going on, talk about how it's realistic, how it's gritty, how it develops all these really gray characters. When you take dark aspects of popular characters and remove them so that they can become more likable, you can't say that anymore. You can't say they're supposed to be realistic and gray because you took away what made them realistic and gray in the first place. Because what happens is, Jaime breaks out Tyrion, and Jaime tells Tyrion that his first wife, Tasha, who Tyrion loved and was gang raped by both Tyrion and Tywin's men, because Tyrion was told that Tasha was a prostitute who slept with him and married him for money, and that relationship, that right there, basically contributes to Tyrion's viewpoints on women from then on out. That's why he sleeps with prostitutes. That's why he's so voyeuristic. That's why he drinks. The trauma of that event for him is so important to him because it showed him how he could not have the love of another person without gold or money. And you see this in his relationship with other people, because how does he get his relationship with Braun? How does relationship with Shay? Money. That's how he knows how to build relationships, because everyone wants him for his money and not for him, because of what Tasha did. However, Jamie tells him that Tasha was really just a nice girl who really did like him, and that because his father did not want him marrying a lowbrow woman, he made up that lie. So Tyrion contributed to the rape and trauma of a woman who did truly love him, and therefore could not develop good relationships with either that woman or any woman future-wise because of a lie that both his father and Jamie contributed to. And because of what Jamie tells Tyrion tells Jamie that Cersei's been sleeping around with other people. And they leave on a bad note, because they both realize how they lied and deceived the other person, and they're kind of like, they both break something in the other person. So they don't leave all broing it out like they do in the show. And that to me is pivotal. That's important, because that shows, that's just both of them on an emotional journey, whether you like that journey or not, because there's something very annoying about that Tyrion does in book 5. But it's part of his journey, and it's important to him. So it is that Jamie tells Tyrion that makes Tyrion go look for his father in the first place. And when he goes look for his father, he finds Shay in bed, and while she's still waking up and not conscious, he strangles her. It is not self-defense, it is not in response to anything, it is murder. Straight up. And Martin says, even though Tyrion is his favorite character, Martin is aware. He says that killing Shay should be seen as a taint on Tyrion's soul, because it was a thing done in cruelty. And people talk about, oh, Shay's a horse. Listen, I did not like Book Shay. This is not a defense of like, I love Book Shay. I did not love Book Shay, because Book Shay was a mean person, but she was a prostitute, okay? And she, alright, it's a lot of things to do. She and Tyrion never had this love bullshit that they had in the show. They were never this close, they were never that in love. She was a whore. Tyrion wasn't even that nice to her all the time anyway. Like, there were times where he would be mean to her and do stuff to her anyway. So there wasn't this perfect true love, blah blah blah, that they had in the show, to begin with. Okay, she was never sent away, or any of that bullshit. So when she gets brought into trial in the books, it's because she's being threatened with her life. She's being threatened that if she doesn't do this, she's probably going to be killed. It's not said, but it's definitely implied. Because obviously, they would find her and they'd bring her along. Okay? So she betrays Tyrion to protect herself. Now, let's go to the show real quick. Did Tyrion not give big ups to Bronn for doing the exact same fucking thing? Did he not encourage Potter to do the exact same thing? So even though it's not said in the show that Shay betrays Tyrion for her own self-protection, I think that should just be implied in the situation. I mean, you think she just brought her ass back there just for no reason? Like, yes, there's a part of revenge into it based on how they wrote her character. That was D&D's own fault, because they knew how she was going to end up dying in the first place. She never should have done it to begin with. But there's definitely an element of fear in her testimony that I think is totally there. And to think that Tywin and Cersei didn't have a little bit of nudge in making her talk is ridiculous. So she's doing what she has to do to survive, which Bronn and Podrick were both encouraged to do in the first place, and they don't end up dead. Big ups, as I said before, to those two. And so, so he kills Shay. It's a bad thing. It's supposed to be a bad thing. So he's like, I'm sorry, whatever. And then he kills Tywin. Not because of Shay, but because of Tasha. Because of starting him on this journey where he couldn't understand real love to begin with. Not because of Shay, about how he feels bad about Shay, all that kind of stuff. But you just killed her, and then you went back like you meant. Stop it. And the thing about it, why is this an important change? It's important because Tyrion is not perfect. Here's the thing. There have been times I've had to ask myself, the role of dwarfism in media has often been treated as with mockery, as a comic character. And here we have a character in Tyrion in this show who's been given grace and dignity and real sense of respect in a world that disrespects him constantly. in a world that disrespects people like him constantly, both in real life and in media. And sometimes I think to myself, is it more important that we have a dignified and respectful and well-liked character entering in the show without the sort of traumatic faults that Book Tyrion has? And while I understand why people don't want that because they like seeing Tyrion be this type of person, and I know my opinion can only count for so much because I'm not disabled and therefore I only have so much input I can give, but from how I feel about it, what I liked about Tyrion's role, and why the thing about it too is, like, while Tyrion has been tainted by the murder of Shae, and while this is a bad thing, you still like him. He is the most liked character in the books. I didn't dislike him until book 5, but that's for other things that we can't get into right now. But because you understood why. He didn't do it because he's just a naturally mean, nasty person. He's been traumatized. He's been lied to, deceived. He cannot have functioning relationships with people because his father wanted to make him feel so shitty. He's had to buy the love and respect of people his entire life. And to realize that he had one chance at having that real happiness with somebody and he was denied it, and then he couldn't have that with anybody else, it destroys him. And that would destroy anybody. And like this is the thing, he's been on trial for being a dwarf his entire life. And it's just another part of it. And he drinks, he whores around because that's how he self-medicates his trauma. And that's a part of that. A part of growing up in that society, a part of growing up in that world and reacting in that way. And that's just as important, because the thing about it is that not everyone can deal with it perfectly. And the thing about it too, him being like that does not make him undignified or ungracefully. For the most part, Tyrion's still the smartest person. He's still clever. He's still able to, you know, like you said, he did have true love, so he could find people who did love him. There are many positive qualities to Tyrion while still having these dark aspects of his character. And what's insulting to the audience is that we won't root for him if he's not perfectly good. That's a lie. First of all, most of us root for villains in this society anyway. If you look at it now, more people are prone to rooting for the antagonist than the protagonist. And most of the most popular shows today feature heroes who are very dark. Sons of Anarchy, Breaking Bad, Dexter, Boardwalk Empire. You know, all of these shows that feature heroes who are dark, tormented, criminals, murderers, you know, child killers at that. And we eat them up. So I don't understand why they think that we are so naive or so unwilling to like a character who is that flawed. And even if people dislike Tyrion because of this action, so what? It's part of his story. And it's a part of telling a larger story about prejudice. And it's being told by an actor who shares that same disability as the character. And I feel like there's something Peter Dinklage can't do that's great with grace. So maybe I don't have the right perspective on it, which I can totally accept me not having. But I feel like in making Tyrion this much lighter in act and deed than he is in book, they are doing a disservice to a character who is much more complex than he's being portrayed. So my hopes for the future. Here's the thing. Even though I am a fan of the books, I totally am, I do not drink the Kool-Aid that says that he's perfect. I think that first of all, I fuck with Feast for Crows. Feast for Crows is my book. I like it. It introduces lots of characters that I like. You know, it's got my Martells in it. A lot of interesting information about the small folk. A lot of really good mythology. So I do enjoy it. But that's gonna be a boop and a half to adapt. For me, this is how I feel. The best part of the series has passed. You know, I mean, book 3 is the best book in the series in my opinion. So the highlights of the series are done. So what comes from here right now can either be much better than the source material, as good, or worse. It's completely up in the air, because before with the previous seasons I felt like, you know, they can improve on certain things, but overall it's ranged from being as good to worse. But now I think it could actually be better, because I don't think that the seasons that they're going to be dealing with now were the absolute best material that they could be given. And that's not shade, because I do still enjoy them, but I recognize that they are much harder to read and not always enjoyable. Like, I didn't enjoy Dance with Dragons. I just didn't. So I think better things can be made from now, but at the same time there are still fundamental issues with them kind of wanting these fantasy characters to fit in these little niche boxes of tropes that I just kind of like can't get into. So I'm hoping that they'll start to like back away from that, because that's what makes the show hard for me. You know, the acting is great, the settings is great, sometimes the outfits are completely ridiculous, but overall the acting, the cinematography, all great. But what the thing that bothers me is not even like what they cut out in terms of plot. It's the characters and how they will fundamentally destroy some of them, you know, to make them fit a box. And that bugs me. And I hope that they can stop, because it's especially with some characters that are coming up next season, that should be coming up next season, like they can be put into that kind of exotic, other sexualized box so easily that all we can really do is pray it doesn't happen.